We do have a quorum,
Yes.
and so our legal meeting, and before Karen gets here, maybe we can approve the minutes. Okay, does everyone have the minutes? Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the motions of our the minutes of our last meeting as presented. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes have been approved. Can I go into the meetings and while we're waiting for Karen? Okay. So I've had a request from the school board to reschedule our meetings, and they were to begin this Thursday and three subsequent.
3 in a row.
3 in a row. And they are not anywhere near of completing their proposed budget. And they do it a little bit differently, I think. They go through the proposed budget and get approval from the board before they bring it here. So they still have to work on it. So the suggested meeting dates from the school board would be November 20th, December 4th, and December 18th. And those are all Wednesdays instead of Thursdays. We normally would meet on a Thursday. So do I hear any comments or concern about rescheduling for those dates?
And did they say 4 or 4:30?
4 to 6.
4 to 6, okay.
4 to 6. And the location would probably either be up at the SAU office or in the cafeteria at the high school. So our school meetings are usually in their facilities somewhere and not here. So that would be November 20th, December 4th, December 18th, Wednesday, 4 o'clock to 6. And I will let you know location when I know the location. So I don't know right now. They haven't told me. So is that okay with everybody?
Sounds good.
Is that okay, Shane? Yeah.
I never know till the day, so.
That's like all of us, right? But so far, it's okay. All right. So I will tell Anne that we've approved those dates. Good.
Okay. Are we still posting for interested budget committee members?
I think it's still up there. Yeah. I don't think we're taking it down.
Because I think obviously we entertain all of the candidates, but showing
Definitely, yeah.
a couple more would be good. Even mid-season.
Yes. Definitely.
And the other preliminary items.
I guess maybe at some time, I had a meeting with Tom Engels and the new superintendent, and we were talking about returning monies. I mean, that wasn't on the agenda. The agenda was about the meeting. But I had the question about that, about the $50,000. And I don't know if you know already, Karen, but what I've got, the indication that I got was the 83 cents that we're projecting as being the increase to the tax rate. That's prior to them giving the 400, and it's after. They're under the impression it's prior. So maybe some communication needs to be.
That 83 cents includes the county's increase as well.
Right, I think they understand it's all inclusive, but I think they thought they still were going to apply the $400,000. Okay, all right. So
I can contact him and just mention that.
Just so that they know in their deliberations that
yeah,
the 50 would improve our situation on the 83 cents.
or yes, or on how much that the town has for their unexpended fund balance. So anyhow, I just thought maybe the communication needed to be.
I mean, it is confusing because the 2 different years, and then, even in this case, the money's coming back. Well, which year is it coming back? And two, right, and obviously there's to keep in mind that, you know, that it's not brain science surgery, but it is interesting that the money that we voted last spring, the school side is for the school 19, 20, 6 months of 19 and 6 months of 20, so it's a little different than that. So I mean, if that's, you know, if you have money that's the surplus from their 18, 19 year, you know, and you're applying that now, you know, that's going against the same year as the town would apply theirs at, which wouldn't actually happen until quite a bit later in the year. But still, being applied against the same year.
It's very confusing.
Okay. But yes, Karen, if you wouldn't mind, you communicate that, just so they know that how
Well,
they're...
I may be presenting it wrong, but I think that's what the understanding is. But it wouldn't hurt to just,
Right.
yeah.
I'll just put it as I'm reviewing the revenues as well, just to make sure that we're on the same page.
And in the same cycle.
Right. All right, so if you want to go ahead and...
Floor is yours, or the table?
We'd like to start with the elections, registration, and vitals. And then tax collecting, we got a welfare budget to review. And then the police department. So pass some that way, pass some this way. You'll have to pass one up. Yes.
And I'm gonna grab, oh, you got one there? I'm gonna grab one for Jim.
I made 15 copies, so I made plenty. And,
Oh, yeah, one.
do you want to make sure they have theirs at the meeting?
I got my copies.
This is the amendment.
Okay, I don't know, Judy, did you want to sit down or?
No, I'll stand up.
Seriously? You already, come on.
Outside the door.
Come on, no, come on. Are you trying to say?
Oh, I gotta stand.
Come on, no, you
Oh, sure, the camera's over.
That's exactly right, you come to right here.
Well, I'll quickly go over the default like I have with all of the other budgets, and then kind of let Judy take it from there. In the default budget, we have a small adjustment in the Social Security calculation. Somehow I picked up the taxes that are on the ballot clerks, and they do not have taxes. So there's a little bit of savings in the default budget because of that. The one-time signature pads is removed from here. We've increased the professional services for elections. There are 4 elections or 4 meetings this coming year. There's an increase in postage to cover some of those costs, increase to the poll watchers, and the CHIP election supplies. So the default budget is $4,472 over 2019's approved budget. It's a 2.39% increase. Moving on to the proposed,
You're doing a great job.
okay, that's fine. I just don't want to step on into his toes. As we said at the very beginning of our meetings, is 3% for non-union calculated in here. We have a little increase to the health insurance because of the 2.2% increase. Little increase to life, disability, Social Security, Medicare, and there is a slight increase to the retirement. There is a decrease in the data processing, and that's because we've got our numbers in and we're able to figure out exactly what those are for the town clerks. Professional services, of course, in the default, we included this increase. It's also, of course, in the proposed because of the added elections or meetings. Under equipment purchase, there's $199. We need a new fax machine for the town clerk's office. after a while, they sort of die.
We paid $20 for our last one,
I was
it
gonna
was
say.
here for many years ago.
So in
No,
the,
we have to have one because of vital records coming in, they have to come into our office, they can't go to another office, and others can't see them. That's a privacy law.
so in the proposed budget, the increase is $4,185. It's a 2.24% increase over 2019's approved. So there's very little difference there.
There's a couple, there's one concern, and then I want to tell you what we received for money this year over this time last year. There's a new law in elections regarding absentee ballots. So I try and figure as close as I can for our regular ballots, election day, and our absentee ballots. There's nothing worse than throwing ballots away, but there's nothing worse than not having enough either. The new law is if, a few years ago we had that blizzard, and it was real contentious. A lot of towns didn't have their elections that day, and by law they had to have it, no matter what. Littleton stayed open, and we did our part. But there is a new law this year that if the National Weather Service sends out a blizzard warning, something like that, that people are allowed, if it's going to be, they think it's going to be on Tuesday election day, any voter in the town of Littleton can come to the town clerk's office and get an absentee ballot
Ahead of time.
on Monday.
Yeah.
They can get it
Just the one day?
just the one day
Oh, okay.
for that special purpose, because they're not going to be out of town and they're not, disabled or something like that. Every voter on the checklist could come in and get an absentee ballot. We hope that never happens. 3,000 voters on Monday before election, and we still would be open election day. I'm gambling. I am going to buy the 200 absentee ballots that I always buy for anyone going out of town, whatever. But it's a possibility down the road. I just want to make everybody aware of that. Worst case scenario is I would photocopy all the absentee ballots that day and sign them and give them out, and then on election day we would count them all by hand. But just to let you know what's going on, because I'm not buying 2,000 absentee ballots.
So you can photocopy, I mean, you actually know you can photocopy.
I can photocopy them and I can sign them. Yes.
Make
Sign
sure.
after you vote on them, not before you
Basic
vote.
machine.
That's correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Pure signature.
You can't number them, because then somebody can know that you have number 1 and you have number 2, and they can find out who voted how. So I do the same thing on all of them. We had that happen one time here, when we had about 2,200 voters, and we got down to about 75 ballots.
Wow.
So I was starting to make them in the policeman's room, thinking we were going out. The other thing is, I took a comparison, just because you asked me for that last time, so I was prepared today. Last year through 9/30, and we are up about $70,000 in revenue over last year at the same time. Most of it was local auto rates. It's about $56,000. And the state is included, though, in that figure. That figure includes all the state fees we take in as well. So I didn't add it up today, but it's about 45,000 or something like that we're up in town fees over this time last year. Last year, at the end of the year, we brought in, including state fees, $1,672,000, which $1,300,000 went to the town. So I'm hoping we'll be at maybe $1,500,000 at the end of this year for the town of Littleton. So I wasn't I was concerned about a copier for my office and decided that I didn't want to add anything to my budget. But I decided today to add on the fax machine because ours isn't working and we're having quite a time trying to get out of our office to get to the other office and photocopy things when we have a scan in here and we're out of our office. And we should have that right there. And our, if things are coming in for death certificates and birth certificates and so on and so forth like that, like I said, you can't show that to anyone else. So the funeral directors and so forth are sending them right directly to our office and they're safe and secure and we just send the stuff out later. So that's why we have that.
How about a e-fax? We don't have fax machines anymore. Now it's all, I can't explain all it is, but I know we still have a fax number. People have faxed it too, but it actually comes into the computer very similar, I guess, to an email, but it's an e-fax.
We do have a lot of people that are emailing.
But this isn't an email, this is an e-fax. In other words, you still, like if somebody has a fax machine, or a computer, I guess for that matter, but if they had a regular fax machine, you type in 603 blah, 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 and send it, and it comes into our computer as opposed to coming into our fax machine, which we no longer have.
We can look at that.
Yeah, just
Certainly. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and I said, Kelly and Veronica get this credit for that, was to be.
No, absolutely.
But yeah, so last time our fax machine died, that's we didn't.
Yeah. The only good thing about that is when the power's out, I have one with the phone and the phone always works. So if all the lines are out, my fax line always works.
Yeah, all
because it's a dedicated line for that.
Is that still the case with the new phone system?
Yes, it's a dedicated line, it's not with them.
Oh, it's because it's not in the phone system.
Right.
That one is still on copper.
But obviously, at some point in time, all that stuff is gonna go away. It's a nice feature while it exists, but I mean, sometime in the phone system, it's all gonna become computerized.
A lot of things to consider.
Right.
So how much did you say the revenues are going by? I think Karen handed this out last week, on last week's presentation. As the revenues year to date proposed.
So you're asking me revenues up to date?
Well, you were going over the revenues, $1 million, you said $1 million came in. $2 million something.
$1,300,000 last year.
$1,300,000 last year.
That is only up to September.
And that's my presentation.
Some of the stuff last year as far as the hardening of your office,
Yeah. We just.
That's the right term?
Yeah, we just looked at it quote just for the glass. We have to raise quite a bit more money. Yeah. A bigger project. Yeah.
I mean,
It's more than we expected.
right. Well, I like it the way it is now, but I know obviously it's today's day and age, it's,
And we like it the way it is now too, because it's more hands-on with the customers and being able to slide the stuff over the counter and be able to help the customer over the counter and so forth, so yes.
Yeah, there was a great disconnect.
Any
Move on.
questions?
Anyone?
Anyone have any questions on that?
How much do the poll watchers get per election? It's a flat rate of,
Yeah, we now pay them $8 an hour.
$8 an hour.
Yeah, they used to get like $25 for half a day or $50 for a whole day, so we had to come up with something and I went to, I probably got information back from 50 to 75 other towns on what they were paying. And that was basically about that rate. Yeah. And they were very happy with that, to know that they were getting something to, they still want to, you know, it feels more volunteerish, but they're still getting something for.
it's still very volunteer.
Yes, yes. For all the work that they do, absolutely. I don't, you know, they're so important for the elections.
And we're having no issue on voting day as far as procedurally, people who have ID, don't have ID, that's all working well as far as if they don't, the alternate plan or whatever, that's,
The supervisors of the checklist
Yeah.
and the select persons deal with that if they come in without ID. We don't usually have many issues with that. Once in a while you get one person that it's not going to come in with their ID. But we have ways of, we take their picture and, you know,
oh yeah, so many.
we have our ducks in a row on that, and yes, it works out well.
Amazing what things are issues nationally don't seem to be happening locally. I mean,
That is very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. And if you work softly with people and make them understand why we're doing that for their safety
Yeah.
and for their vote and so forth, they understand.
yeah,
It's not that we're just trying to be belligerent because they're gonna go out and get their ID, and we can't make them go out and get their ID. If it's out in their car, the law says we can't do that. They're more than welcome to have their picture taken, and we'll go from there. ID for them. There are people that, for religious reasons, won't have their picture taken. We have a way to deal with that for them. So the only time we're sending people away if they don't live in Littleton.
That happens.
And that can be tough sometimes.
yeah. Well, anyway, obviously it's nice that things are running smoothly and, yeah, it's good.
No hanging chads in
So,
it.
don't hang chads, that's the only one. If he wants to hang around, he has to hang around. So we actually do have a hanging chad. Absolutely, by law he has to. Am I done?
If you're done, thank you very much for everything and,
Thank you. Now if I can get out of this chair.
yes.
My knees aren't good.
Yeah, I know
So
that.
if I can do something about that, so I need to get up so Amy can come over here. Or I mean, just, or I'm gonna have to just sit here. So.
Do you want us to help you?
Yeah.
Let's see.
I need to get up. I have a hard time with this.
That's all right.
Sorry.
That's
But I try not to do this. I have to go straight up.
Okay.
So, all right, guys.
That's fine.
You got it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You got it.
And they don't want to do anything for my knees, so I'm not leaving soon, guys. I hope not, anyway. But I apologize, I'm embarrassed, but don't wait the
Thank you very much.
Thank
Don't be
you.
embarrassed.
Yeah, I got your seat warmed up for you.
Yes. Figuratively and literally.
Okay, on to tax collection.
Mhm.
The default budget has a total of $73 difference from the 2019 approved budget for the tax collecting. That, of course, is made up of little calculations and adjustments in the calculations for raises and for taxes of retirement. Even health insurance, no, health insurance would not change in the default. So it's a 0.09% difference in the default. In the proposed, we of course have the 3% non-union. We have adjusted the amount going to the sewer expenses to 25%. This was in the 2020 default and the 2019 as 10%. Realistically, there are more hours spent than the 25% for the tax collector in collecting and billing for sewer taxes, for sewer fees. So that adjustment carries down through all of the wage and wage-related items. We have an increase in cost of data processing. And other than that, there are no other changes. The reduction in the tax collecting budget is $8,960. It's a reduction of 10.89% to the tax collecting in the proposed budget.
Mostly due to the sewer change.
Mostly due to the adjustment. You'll see probably next year one more bump up in that to be more realistic. I don't know for sure, but I'm estimating at least 33% of the time, Amy is, or the tax collector is doing work that is sewer billing related, sewer receipts related.
And we're continuing to collect email addresses and whatever, every chance we can.
I get those when people pay online.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Someday, obviously, there'll be a change of some
Someday,
sort
yeah,
in that.
yeah.
You guys be ready for it.
Right,
No, really, 'cause
right,
it's,
right.
you know, I'm waiting for the day after, because so you get to the end of the month and
You can just email the bill.
Oh, that's right, exactly, just push a button and, you know.
Yeah, right now, I don't, we're not
But
set up
I'm
that way,
sure,
but
yeah, I'm not sure if that technology, I keep asking, and I'm sure if that's, I'm sure it's available in some fashion at some cost, but originally that cost was gonna come down, how easy it would be to just,
Right.
I know we have more and more people emailing us invoices and whatever,
Right.
but some of that is still manual, scanning them and whatever.
And QuickBooks is one thing.
It was my first year for auto registration via the email, the bill paying via the email.
A lot of people.
I was so surprised. And it was good.
Saves us money.
I don't think I've gone into the office for a number of years with auto registrations.
But anyway, I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
in any department, I'm not sure how much overlap there is, but certainly we want to collect as many of those
Yeah,
as we can at some point in
I
time.
made a note, so.
Yeah, it's equal for me too, if I looked up try to find a property owner, way to contact them, Amy usually has a pretty good database of
Yeah.
who they are, versus in our CAMA, we just have a mailing address and business name. She may have like the actual individual contact email
Yeah,
number.
yeah.
And boy, I mean, if you need to look up a phone number for somebody today, that's, I mean, unless they're a business, that's almost impossible.
Yeah, I noticed that, it used to be. if you
I
go to
can give
Amy's,
you a tip.
Okay,
TruePeopleSearch.com.
Really?
That's the best way to look it up, so there isn't,
I'm
virus.
gonna make that note, what is it again?
True People Search.
TRUE,
Yeah, People Search.
and they don't charge you $25 a
No,
coin?
you know,
.com?
.com.
Yeah, because obviously most businesses you can sign on and get, but, you know, individual people, you just, sometimes then you start thinking, well, who, you know, who knows them, and saying, you know, but
Right.
True People Search, okay,
Yeah.
that's very
Yeah.
good, thank you.
That's what we use. We added that $60,
Yes.
because now I have, not only do I take payments online, I can swipe the card right at my counter. So, and that's a $60 a year fee.
Very reasonable to be able to use that. Somebody wanting to
They
use
still
it.
have to pay 2.79%, minimum of $1.50, but everybody seems to be okay with, you know, that.
It's convenient.
Yeah. I think they like to do that at home, and they can just, it's good.
Anyone else?
No,
Anything else you'd like to offer?
no.
Well, they use True People Search, I might try that tomorrow.
Any questions? Okay. You're welcome. My stomach was in knots.
Oh, hopefully not because of us.
Well, I just, you know, get nervous.
Thank you very much.
Your chair.
Thanks for your support, you.
I'm gonna do the welfare for Celia, she's not here, so.
Can I say one thing before Chris Marino, if I may?
Yes.
I just want to thank all of you for your hard work that you do.
We appreciate you being there today.
How many,
When we walk through the door with a challenge.
how many budget members are you now?
Well, we, in theory, we have 7.
You'd like 9?
We would,
Oh,
yeah.
I'll keep my ear out, see if there's anybody.
And, you know, we would take 11. You know, we could do a couple different formats. This past years, we have a couple alternates, not
Yeah.
alternatives, alternates, wherever, but
Right.
you can find some good people that are interested. Nice to have them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you much.
Yeah.
So, on the welfare budget, the default is exactly the same as the 2019. In the 2020 proposed, there has been increases throughout the budget to account for more realistically of what it's been this year. The selectmen were asked the last selectmen's meeting to withdraw some funds from the trust account of about $14,000 because we were short about $14,000. So there is a $14,850 difference, which is 28.51% from the 2020 proposed to the 2019 approved.
And that leaves how much in the reserve?
Roughly about 8,000.
We've been doing that now for 5 years, whatever, maybe longer.
Not every year have we put money into it, but
But we instituted the policy.
yes.
5 years.
Is that every year we have to do it a warrant article, or is it?
Every year you'll have to do a warrant article to put money into it. To withdraw from it, the selectmen are
Yeah, we
authorized
did,
to
yeah, we
do
did
that.
that at our last meeting.
Usually the amount that's been left over from the previous year's budget.
And we have to have permission to put that into the reserve account. so
Yes,
I
from the
understand.
taxpayers, or the voters, excuse me, the voters.
So if we trended, so, you know, a few years by having monies at the end of the year that can be transferred over, and this year we're drawing 14,000 out, is there a particular area?
If you go back to last year's budgeting and review some of our budgeting last year, there was a decision to reduce this budget, hoping to squeeze by about that amount of money. This budget's been running between 65 and 75,000 every year for a very long time. And last year we decided to reduce some because we did have some funds in the trust fund, and hoping not to use it, we're ending up needing it.
Usually I think there'd be money left over at the 60, but there'd be money left over at the end of the year. It doesn't look like we'll have that this year.
No.
You know, with the transfer of money in. So there has been an uptick. I think from what Seal has indicated, it's overnight room stays, and it may have something to do with people who are coming to Littleton for is it halfway houses and what, I'm not sure exactly what opioid treatment or recovery. If they fail a test, then they're kicked out and they'll be homeless for a night or so, and we have to pay them up. And they can be readmitted within so many days. So I think instead of them going back to wherever they're from, you know, they'll stay in the area for a few days to be readmitted. I think that's what Seal explained to me about one of the situations.
And I know that SEAL works with all the other agencies around and utilizes as much as she can their ways of supporting those in need. So I'm surprised, you know, that we have a $14,000 uptick, but it must be from what you were just saying, that there must be an increase in that area.
And just the sheer volume this year, I've noticed, you know, just from, you know, her office being next to mine, it just seems like it's a really steady stream. And I've never seen it like that before. So, but I think Seal would have to give you more of a breakdown, but I don't even know how much of it she could share.
She kind of, and I worked with SEAL for, I don't know, 10 years or so, maybe even longer as the welfare officer, hearing officer. So I know how she utilizes all the other agencies and they work well together. So yeah. That's how it
How is it determined, how does a person qualify for this assistance, and how does this whole deal work?
So there's an application, and the application involves a number of different things. Actually, you can probably speak to it better than I can.
Yeah, it's good to know,
There's a rent assistance application, or if they need food assistance or an overnight stay, and there's income and expenses have to be shown. They have to show receipts, for example, of, you know, their rent or vehicle or, you know, phone bills, whatever it is. And there's also work search requirements. It's pretty rigid to be able to get through it. But then there's also just emergency assistance, and with that, that's different. I mean, if you're you're out for the night, in the middle of the night, you know, somebody calls the police department, usually is how it starts. And, you know, they put somebody up if they're out of, outdoors. And SEAL's, like you said, SEAL's really good about connecting with other agencies, whether it's a homeless shelter or, you know, some try to help them find family or some other means of long-term support.
There are so many guidelines that the state provides for SEAL, and she actually uses those guidelines in determining whether or not a person can qualify for assistance, because it is rigid with if you have this amount of income, and you have, you know, you go down the line of what your expenses are. If there's adequate money in there, they should be able to take care of themselves. But, and SEAL actually has to say no sometimes to these people. Doesn't happen very often, and that's why the welfare officer would come in if they felt like, you know, another set of ears and eyes, and to see if everything was done correctly. And SEAL was always spot on with all of the information and the guidelines.
She has a good balance of, you know, having accountability in
heart.
Needed. And, you know, just a side note, it's really interesting in New Hampshire that each municipality is responsible for enacting welfare. To me, it seems disjointed and like a lot of duplication, and I think it leaves a lot of room for, you know, potential abuse. And I don't know, it's something that maybe the legislature in the future could look at, but I know in some states we have a more unified approach. You're not going to have somebody go to multiple towns, and that's something that, you know, sometimes we'll see where somebody could come in and they fit into who knows how many towns.
All different agencies.
Yeah.
And so the communication between the agency and SEAL, the town, is really critical, and she's very good at making sure she does her homework to make sure that they're not double dipping in some other areas.
They may even have a background check. If they've received funds from us in the past and have abused the system, they may not be allowed to use the system at all anymore. So it is some training to go through to experience it. Years ago, I was welfare back in another town I worked for, and now I've taken the place of Diane as far as hearing officer, and there's been very few that have come back. They have a right to appeal the decision through the hearing officer.
That doesn't happen very often.
Do they wind up down at the intersection of Walmart Drive and 302 holding a sign? Because I don't think you've seen some of that this summer in the warmer months.
There seems to be.
I don't usually see those guys. I think they're doing pretty well.
Seems like there's a lot of panhandlers.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what my husband has been saying. There's a lot of panhandlers. So maybe
So
we
they don't love
should
that.
address that. Yeah.
I can get them lots of job applications. There's everybody's hiring, so.
Yeah, you have those in your front seat, you're rolling.
There you go.
Yeah.
We try to give them bus tickets out of town.
Remember the Oral Roberts TED shows, whatever, type of the regular TED, you know, Oral Roberts was a healer, you know, back in the 50s or 60s or whatever, and he was on television or whatever, and, you know, people with, you know, disabilities, whatever, he would lay on the hands, whatever, and heal them, whatever. So one day he was going along and he got to this one guy and he said, no, I'm on disability. Leave me alone.
So that is it for welfare.
Yeah.
Yes.
I gotta go find that.
That's it. I didn't have YouTube back then. This predates YouTube.
Any questions, other questions?
Ready for the police?
Ready for the police? The police policing or Karen, you policing?
I will try to present as much as I can, but I believe the chief and the captain, the deputy is ready
We'll
to
chime in.
chime in. So I'm just going to go over the default budget. There is very few changes in the default budget. There is a reduction in the retirement rate, so that had to be factored in here. Retirement is mandatory on employees over 35 hours a week, so of course we are able to change that in the default budget. And then you continue through the pages, you'll see under equipment purchase, under vehicles, we've returned the vehicle from last year that was removed. We discussed during budget process that that would be returned in the 2020 budget. So the difference between the default and the 2019 approved budget is $49,739. It's a 2.83% increase. And you will see most of that is the return of the vehicle. So we'll start on the 2020 proposed. There are some changes in staff. There is 3% increases to non-union employees. We have some reduced overtime because of some of the changes in the positions. There is a reduction in the travel reimbursement. We have some other means, of course, with the admin vehicle to do some of the transports. There is an adjustment in the health insurance. Part of that is the 2.2, and of course changes within different people taking different plans. That's a small amount of about $7,000 difference. There is a change in the retirement, of course, because there is a change in staff. So there's some reductions on that end.
Can I just, on the year-to-date for the health insurance, the 2019 approved was 243, and then the year-to-date it's 164. And is that just because of the time of the year where we don't have a full year in there, or?
We don't have a full year in here, and we've had a position that might have been open during the year, so we would have some little bit of savings there if somebody left and it took time to hire someone else back in.
So that may not
So
be
we have
utilized in full.
Right.
Okay.
We have September, I believe in September's bill may not be in here, but it was September, October, November, and December's is going to be applied in here. If we continue on to page 2 of 4, there's a decrease in train, and you can see the different lines that are changing. There is a little bit of an increase in the uniform cost. And again, you can see where there's a difference. It's in dry cleaning mostly. There's an increase in the match for professional services and grant matches. The chief and his department are very good on going out and getting grant monies. And most of those grant monies have an amount, percentage, that need either 25 up to 45% match, sometimes 50% match.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Back up on the training, the conference prosecutors, 3,700, and the default, 2020 default is 3,700. And then the proposed details, 500. So that's down to 500 total? Is that what you're saying for 2020?
For that one particular thing.
Okay, and so if that is the case for the proposed, but it's still 3,700 in the default.
And normally your default would be made up of the same expenditures as the previous year or the same budget as the previous year, other than those that are state mandated, like the elections, or New Hampshire retirement system, workers' comp. your one-time purchases would normally be taken out of this. So the prosecutor was not a one-time purchase, training for him or her. It was in the budget last year, it stays in the default, it's the same number as last year, unless the selectmen choose to do some, there's a gray area the selectmen.
So that could be, if the select board decides, they could reduce that to reflect the proposed 2020
They could.
proposed number. So that would reduce the default by $3,200.
Yes. So uniforms, I did that one. Let's see, telephone and communications, there is an increase here. We have a new phone system that has added quite a few services for the police department. Some of them are very helpful legal-wise, to have a better record of the phone communications. And the chief could go into more detail than what I can on that. Data processing, medical service, and custodial services are all the same. Professional services, there is a small increase there. Towing vehicles the same. Facilities maintenance, there is an increase. And if you notice where the increases are, we have a door that's in the back side of the police department that really needs to have more coverage. The overhang, there is no real overhang on this door to protect it, and it needs to have a new rear door. It's deteriorating. We've done some patches, but the patches just hold it off for a little bit longer. Under parking lot line painting in the same page, you'll see we're now on our 3rd year. We were supposed to do it every 2 years. And so we have a number in there for the parking lot line painting.
So we haven't done it for 2 years.
Right.
That's not just line painting.
I hope not.
Well, I'm sorry.
That includes, when they're done, they paint the lines, but that's sealing the whole lot,
Sealing,
filling the cracks.
sealing.
And this year, they're actually filling in all of the area around the curbing, because the sediment gets in there and then ice and snow, and it pushes the curb out. They're gonna fill that back in and seal that. Going back to the door, what we're proposing is actually, I think, the problem is that one of the few design flaws, because we have a really good building, is that the rear entrance was not built a step up from the concrete slab. So during the winter, water or snow is at the same level as the threshold, and it's rotting the base of the actual metal door frame. However, recently corrosion's been permeating out of the frame itself, and we don't know why. And at some point when we pull that apart, it could be more or less than the proposed price, but we had a contractor come in and tell us how much it would cost to completely replace that. But this was repaired by one of our maintenance personnel, sanded, primed, filled, and then painted about a month and a half ago. And this is what's seeping out of one of the frames. That's at the base. That's, by the way, that carpet was just barely replaced on a normal schedule, and now it's all rust, and it's just,
So you don't know what's
we
coming.
don't know what's behind that metal frame that's causing that.
Call Ghostbusters or something.
That's what it looks like, right?
Yeah, it does.
Is there no roof or overhang protecting
There is no
that?
overhang. That's part of the proposal, is to put an overhang there to prevent snow from getting into the threshold, but that's the frame. And so we don't know what's going on behind there.
Yeah.
So, so you can't go back to the contractor and say, what
No,
possibly.
we're 10 years into the building now.
But I mean, even to see what it's made of, so then you could do your research to see if it would be leaching or.
We have contacted the contractor as far, we know what kind of construction it is, but we have no idea, and they don't either, at what cost.
Jimmy?
So I'll continue on page 3 or 4. Dues, there is an increase here, and you can see by my highlight what particular number it is. Under general supplies, we do have an increase in some cleaning costs. You can go further down, and under gasoline, last year we cut this, and we're anticipating an over expenditure here. But at this time, we're budgeting in the 2020 budget, proposed budget $17,000. Under vehicle maintenance, there is a slight increase in one of the lines there, under car washes. Books and periodicals, there's a small increase, and you can see by the grayed area that what lines those pertain to. There's a reduction in the rental and leases. We've sent back some equipment. Under the proposed budget, there is a difference in the cruiser setup. One thing that we have to do is replace some of the radio systems that are in the cruiser. I believe one of them is 20 years old or more of them.
So let me explain this a little bit. So as you guys know, I stood before the committee last year and said, yes, we'll cut that out of the budget, but it needs to go back in. So our cruiser replacement schedule has been under a lot of scrutiny interior within the department and with the town manager and Karen as to how we want to approach this. We have two different plans, either yearly or every 3 years, purchasing 3 cars, and then wait 3 years and purchase 3 more cars, although the payments would be the same each year during that 3-year period. There is an advantage to that, and let me give you an example. The numbers just barely came in today on one of our final quotes, like literally right before this meeting. And so we have the radios in those 3 patrol vehicles that we propose to replace are over 20 years old, and they're non-supported by Motorola, and they can't be repaired, and they're breaking very quickly. So our proposal is to replace the radios for those patrol vehicles. If we were to propose that replacement this year, that would be $20,000 in the budget for replacing all 3 radios. That includes installation, the radio, the installation, the programming. However, we can spread that cost over 3 years, which might be a lot more beneficial to our budget. We're still going to have them in year 1, but the payment will go over a 3-year time period. We also have a camera that needs to be added to our supervisor's vehicle, patrol cruiser camera. That cost, rather than paying $6,000 up front, can be spread over 3 years at $2,000 a lap. So essentially, we can either spend $67,480 in 1 year and then have a spike, and it might go back down in the following years. Or we could be closer to the proposed costs that we have here. We're still fleshing out some numbers, but it'll be $56,000 or less over each year. It'll be the same price for the next 3 years, because we're going to purchase a vehicle. We need to every year. We can't get behind on our vehicle purchases.
But last year, Paul, the reason we didn't buy the vehicle was because we bought 2 of the previous.
That's correct.
vehicles, right? So it wasn't like we cut one out, we'd already
I think,
bought it, right?
The proposal that year would have been those 2 vehicles and then a lease purchase, so that you're making a payment year 1, making a payment year 2. The advantages is spreading your equipment and installation cost over that time period. Because of the issue with the legislature, we're kind of caught off guard a little bit on that, and the funds were gathered to purchase those 2 vehicles that year. We had to, we didn't have a choice, and we moved it from the proposed budget because we couldn't do that because of legislative issues that had just gotten passed. But you're going to see that deficit from last year, but we got to put a cruiser back in the budget this year. What we're saying is,
But the idea to buy 3 cruisers, I mean, because what's the advantage of buying 3 in 1 year and financing over 3 years as opposed to just buying 1 a year?
because this year we have to finance in 1 year the cost of, well, we're going to have to buy 3 radios, so we can spread that over a 3-year term. We can also spread the cruiser camera over a 3-year term rather than incurring that huge expense all in 1 year. They'll finance
By making
all the
them
equipment.
part of the cruiser purchase.
Right. And, you know, quite honestly, much credit to the deputy chief on this, but it takes a lot of personnel time each year to tear one car down, transport, and build another car. Now you're doing all of them at the same time, then you have a couple of years of reprieve, and then you do it all over again. That model that we're proposing is pretty consistent with other departments as well.
Okay, so help me understand. Really, it's just a question of understanding here. So I know that if in the past, we've done it every year.
That's correct.
Basically.
We've tried.
And so then, to me, if you got a new car and then you only have so many miles on it, but now if we were to purchase 3 in 1 year, how does that, the mileage and the impact on the car? Because you won't, they're not going to be sitting in the parking lot waiting for year 2 to use the second car.
That's correct.
So now we're adding the miles. So just help me understand that.
Sure.
I don't understand that.
So every 3 years, you're getting rid of 3 vehicles. Either they're being rotated into an administrative function, either assigned to me or a detective or parking enforcement, and then those vehicles are, like my vehicle's, ready to be auctioned off. Generally, after 6 years, we get rid of the vehicles. They're at a point where they're not serviceable for patrol, and we'll auction those vehicles off.
And they rotated through all the other.
They rotate through all those functions. So, am I explaining this correctly, Deputy Chief? I don't want to confuse you guys, but it's not like we're going to have, like you said, 2 brand new cars sitting there that are unused. What'll happen is 3 cars will be taken offline as patrol vehicles, and they'll be put in an administrative function, either my vehicle, the detectives, or parking enforcement. Those 3 vehicles that we're using right now will go out to auction. Or if the town elects to retain one of those vehicles as an administrative vehicle for the community, that would be probably a good idea, because it can be used in that support function.
Okay, so it's going to take me a while to process all that. Yeah, just to see the rotation and the.
Yeah, but basically what we're saying is 56 grand a year for 1 vehicle, or 56 grand payment per year over 3 years for 3 vehicles.
Thank you. And you're getting all your equipment new right up front and spreading the payment over 3 years. Do you have anything to add, Deputy?
With the rotation, the aspect or concept of getting 3 cars in the course of 1 year is dedicating those 3 cars strictly to our patrol levels, the staff. So they have the most newest, reliable equipment to do their job type of thing there. After 3 years, which typically, give or take a couple, 3,000-4,000 miles, about 25,000 miles per car per patrol status. So at the end of 3 years, they have about 75,000 miles on them. Some people might say, well, 75,000, I keep my car to 120,000. We've always talked about this budget committees. Huge difference between 120,000 personal to 75, 120,000 police use. So 75,000, multiple users and whatnot there, cars have had a hard life, so to speak. They're ready to be phased out to more of administrative capacity, such as detective, chief of police, park enforcement, municipal use for the town, different people going to trainings and things like that, so we can cut down mileage and things like that there. And then the expectation is the cars that come off rotation, who've been in for 3 years, we'll keep them another 3 years. We'll keep them 6 years. And by that time frame, on average, each car, about 100,000 miles between the time it's time to get rid of it. Trust me, a police cruiser, 6 years, 100,000 miles, you're not getting much at auction. Chief knows better than I do.
You get we got what, 1,400? The last vehicle we got rid of. We got
Right.
around 14. The only cars that brought more into auction were the Chargers because they had the Hemi engines and everything.
Right. So think of it on a personal level. If you're going to go out and buy a car for $1,400, what type of car are you getting for $1,400? But we're expected at the end of 6 years to use the same type of car for our day-to-day mission. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. And you'll see through a model on a year-by-year replacement versus a fleet replacement, we're able to rotate the cars out sooner with lower miles, which means less repair costs, less breakdown. Because when the car breaks down, it takes a while to get it fixed, parts, pieces, and things like that. And that's a resource we no longer have on the road. So what do? Well, we probably have less officers patrolling. Not a scare tactic or anything like that, but as your equipment breaks down, you don't have that as a resource.
I'm sorry to interrupt it. Isn't that an argument against doing all three at once? Because on the third year, theoretically, all three of them will be susceptible to breakdown as opposed to having them staggered.
So what we do is you can purchase the cars and they go to whoever your outfitter is and they outfit them one at a time. Good point with that is when we replace one car at a time, so we take one off of the patrol line and it's going to go to, say, the chief of police, right? So he already has a car assigned to him. So his equipment, we got to take his car to service, take it someplace, get all the equipment stripped out of it. It's going to go to auction. We're not going to use it anymore. So we're down that car. And we got to pay a vendor to take all that out. We get a brand new car. We're going to now take one of our outfitters to put all the new equipment in it. So we have to have that offline. The chief's going to get a car that's already been patrolled. So that one's got to be stripped out. That equipment's got to be put in the new car. All the equipment for him and the chief's car is now going to be retrofitted into the old police cruiser that's coming offline, type of thing there, right? We have to do that no matter what.
Right, I understand that.
Well, okay.
But if they're all the same vintage, you'll tend to have all the repairs at the same time, which would tend to exacerbate the problem of not having a vehicle available for your patrols. Whereas if they're staggered, do you follow what I'm saying?
If it all hits
I
them.
mean, if they're all getting old at the same time, you're more likely to have multiple vehicles need service or offline.
Although truthfully, 75,000 miles, police cruiser or not, is low mileage.
Well, I'm not arguing that issue, I'm just arguing the issue of all at once versus staggered.
Well, we didn't have that issue with the two vehicles that we purchased recently. Looking at our repair numbers, the time that our repair numbers were the most, we expended in 2013 $9,487 on maintenance because we skipped a few years with cruiser purchases and our cars were getting older. As we updated our fleet, we drastically reduced that. Now we're down to $3,500. And we're pretty much on the mark with that expenditure amount for our maintenance costs.
And Paul, what are the
Repair costs, I'm sorry, those are our repair costs.
What are the vehicles we're buying now?
We buy the Ford Interceptor Utility Interceptor.
Which is, what is that? Ford Explorer? Ford?
Yes.
It looks like Ford Explorer. They don't make those sedans anymore, and I wouldn't recommend them, they're too small.
But the Explorer, we're using
Yes.
Sport utility.
Yeah, police version sport.
That's
So
correct.
to your point there, by doing the fleet purchase and making sure patrol has the most up-to-date there, at the end of their 75,000-ish or so life there, the cars aren't breaking down.
So that's not when you're getting the breakdowns. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, no, it's later on. So if we are gonna have an older car break down, it should be the chief's car.
Yeah.
It should be the detective's car.
Yeah.
It should be our main patrol fleet who we need to get out there and respond to calls.
Okay, I understand. I didn't get,
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry if it
that
wasn't
from the
clear.
first.
Yeah.
And where are we today on our idle or no idle policy? What are we doing on that?
Regarding, I'm sorry, Steve?
Idle or no idle policy? Idling a
Yes.
vehicle.
They
They idle.
I mean, they have so much electronics, and even with LED lighting and things like that, and routinely, as we come down Napa and buy batteries.
Well, yeah, although on batteries, there's a new deal, and is it your officer Martin?
Yes.
That gentleman from Brooklyn?
Yeah,
You know, with I mean, there's two issues with batteries. One is to run the battery flat and to have the vehicle not start. The other thing is to run the battery flat, spoil the battery, and need a new one. So the last one we did was a AGM, absorb glass matting battery, which by its nature is a deep cycle battery, slightly lower cold cranking amps, but that's the type of battery that's being used. All these vehicles today, or the last 4 or 5 years that are being built, that stop running at a stop sign or a traffic light, and then you touch the gas pedal, those are all using AGM batteries. So hopefully with an AGM battery, we won't be spoiling batteries. You may run one flat because of leaving something on. You have one of your vehicles, the one vehicle we put that battery in, that battery was only a little over a year old, and but it had run flat several times, and regular starting batteries, high cold cranking amperage batteries are not made to be able to be discharged. And a typical situation for a homeowner, your wife comes home with the groceries or whatever, one of the kids leaves the dome light on. If you do that 5 or 6 times, and it doesn't come back again. So hopefully with those AGM batteries, you won't be buying more batteries. You just charge them back up, and they'll be good to go again.
So in the circumstance that you're talking about, it wasn't a battery issue, although thank you very much for that suggestion, because we did put the battery in there.
Yeah.
Our cruisers have charge guard systems in there, so at a certain time period, everything's shut. So if the officer gets out of the car and they're off on something that they thought would only be 10 or 15 minutes, and now they're there for 2 hours, it shuts everything down. The charge guard system was not wired properly in that vehicle, so everything was still drawing from the battery even though things were shut off.
And that's why it killed.
That's why it was killing the battery.
Yeah.
So
and that battery would not come back.
No.
But hopefully the new one will, regardless.
It must be great.
So
don't throw it away.
One other thing I want to point out, and the deputy chief has done extensive work on this research, and I support his proposal. I think it's the best, most economic way to go for the department and the community. But Ford threw another wrench in it this year. So we have all this great equipment that we put in our 2018 Ford Utilities and the 2017. The problem is Ford has changed the design of the Interceptor one more time. So for example, the partition that we use when in the back of the patrol car with our prisoner transports won't fit in the car. The window protectors that we put in the rear of the vehicle won't fit because the dimensions of the windows have changed. I think our white bars aren't going to fit.
There's virtually no equipment that we purchase for our past cruisers that will transfer. Only one piece, because they get an adapter kit for it that will transfer, which is half the cost of a brand new cage anyhow. So unfortunately, that has really driven up the cost this year of the...
Generally, we can transport all of our equipment out of one vehicle and put it in a new vehicle for several years. Ford threw a wrench in it this year and changed that. And that's not just us, it happened to every department around here. Everybody's
nationwide.
Everybody's feeling the same pain that we are.
Karen, is there anything coming off the debt for lease or anything else out of for the police department?
No. The police department, the only thing that's on the debt schedule for the police department is the police department facility.
The facility, okay. So all of our leases and everything else currently that would be under the police department, they're all paid?
Well, there's the 2-year program of the replacement body cameras that's in here. That's part of theirs, so they're in year 2 of a 4-year program.
But those are all within the budget. Those are not part of the separate debt cycle. These are all
They're all in this right
things
here.
within the budget. That's correct.
I'm just trying to see if we're layering upon layer here, so, okay.
If you look at page 4 of 4, you will see the equipment purchase field. and what's in here for some new equipment that needs to be, actually it's replacement equipment from some equipment that doesn't work anymore or has used its life cycle. One is the ballistic shield and the restraint chair, which is in here.
Sounds awful.
And then we also have had to include in here some cost for another taser.
So does anybody have any questions? Ballistic shield is when we do warrant entries, we have a ballistic shield when we enter the residence, if it's a medium to high risk entry, just protects the officers. Kevlar has a life expectancy of 5 years or less, and our ballistic shield is extremely old, and we want to protect the officers should there be an unfortunate incident of an exchange of gunfire. And the restraint chair is in our holding cells. One byproduct of the drug epidemic is that we've had some violent offenders that we've had to bring into the department. Our current restraint chair doesn't really restrain, and it puts the individual that's being detained at risk as well as the officers. So we would like to get a new restraint chair that can properly restrain them without harming them until they're at a point that we can transport them safely to another location.
So, memory is so foggy, but we added, I think, another position so we could have a detective. We didn't, did we not do that at all a couple years ago?
I don't think we added a position for a detective. Okay. The community added a patrol position.
Okay.
We've had a detective since 2000. Deputy, can you help me on this? I mean, because he was a detective at one point. So we've always had a detective.
2004? Okay. Well, I was just wondering, part of that was because of the new situations, the opioid and all of the other things that go on, or that I thankfully don't know about. So are we handling all of that in a timely manner? Because I know that, you know, that was part of the situation of asking for additional patrol, or an officer, was in order to help people do that. So can you update and let us know if it's working or isn't working, or are you getting more caseloads because of what's going on in the community, or?
Our cases are very complex. The opioid crisis, and now it's methamphetamine crisis, is definitely affecting our ability to respond to calls. These cases are very complex. We're very grateful that the community gave us an additional officer a few years ago to help with this, but quite frankly, we always need more boots on the ground for this. I don't see it going away anytime soon. That's the short answer, being as honest as I can.
Oh, I don't doubt it, yeah. Don't doubt it. We can't catch up, so to speak. Okay.
So,
Do you have anything to add, Deputy?
We don't have enough people.
We don't. We just don't.
No, we don't. I think when we look at our numbers, even when we're at full staff, just because of either trainings, vacations, medicals, people leave for different jobs, we're always down somebody no matter what. And I guess you could always add somebody, maybe that always happened, but no, we don't have enough. We don't have enough officers. Plain and simple.
Well, I think sometimes situations outpace, no matter if you kept adding more officers, it would, you know, things just outpace what you can do, especially with the opioid crisis. But I think part of it was that it was hard to investigate, it was hard to get the paperwork done, it was hard to do everything because of being active and having to go out and do on-calls and stuff like that. So anyhow, I was just curious about where we are in that process.
Thank you for asking, but that's our answer.
Yeah.
So the 2020 proposed budget is $81,323 more than 2019's approved budget. It's a 4.63% increase. If you look through the budget, you're going to find almost all of that is related to equipment or facility maintenance, not to staffing.
Okay, so the other piece to this though is that you will be negotiating a new contract. So there are no increases for salaries in this other than the non-union.
Non-union.
So with the $81,000 increase, that does not include any of the salary adjustments because that contract has to be negotiated
For union employees.
for union employees. Ballpark, and this has nothing to do with what you would currently be negotiating, but what was the increase for that last year, just ballpark?
I think it was around 20,000
Or-
last year when we were working on negotiations. We never.
We never.
We never- no, we never-
You didn't do it, so
Right.
it's, okay.
Yeah.
It was never.
So this will be the second year out. Okay. I was just trying to get, like a placeholder. That's all I was trying to figure out as a placeholder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, 3% of $800,000 is $24,000, right?
Okay. All right. Just so you realize, you and Shane realize that this would not include any salary adjustments other than the non-union because the contract has to be negotiated.
So how soon are we gonna have a $2 million police department? 1 year or 2?
I'm not predicting anything anymore.
It'll happen either in 1 year or 2.
I want to add one other thing for, it's not in the budget, only because once again, the numbers are just coming in. But again, some of these things are just a reality of progress and reality of technology that we deal with. Our internet is adequate if you are not a company that exchanges a massive amount of media storage over the internet. So we started researching fiber because our backup is not happening as quickly as we need it to. Our interface with basically our data is stored off-site, and some of it's stored in Haverhill with our records management system. And then while that's happening, now we have all these clusters of media storage going somewhere else with all of our body cameras, cruiser cameras, internal videos, all this data that's out there. So we've researched fiber. Fiber is being installed quite at a very high pace within the town of Littleton in different businesses. So we're looking, if we were to install fiber, this is essentially a $2,800 installation fee. And then the cost of fiber is around $525 per month. The particular company that we're looking at has, I believe, 6 different broadband networks that back them up. It's not a singular network, so if one goes down, they can switch over to another, and they can switch over to another, and so on and so forth. That cost is about the same cost as all we've checked with Consolidated and other fiber optics. I'm still working with the town manager on this. It's not reflected currently in this budget. I don't believe this is a want. I believe it's an operational need. It's the world that we live in when everybody wants technology and accountability with cameras, and certainly records management so that they have information immediately upon request. It costs a little bit more than the old school dial-up.
Chief, I have a question about that, because I deal with large amounts of data in my business. I understand why we had to go to fiber. It's not even close to the size of the data you deal with in the whole scope of your data. My question is, in your current backup system, are you even able to back up? Does it happen overnight, or what's the process? What's the timing, and can it actually get done in an overnight?
I wish it could, but the short answer is no, it doesn't happen overnight, although it is all backed up off-site. But for example, our media goes, my understanding is that we have a server in-house in our server room for just the media. Our other stuff is backed up immediately off-site.
Okay.
But because the media takes so long, we can't have it on that same line, so it goes to another server in-house, and then it's almost a trickle to
It just
our
keeps going.
IT provider, and it just keeps going. So that way it doesn't slow everything down, and we don't have, because we're 24/7, we can't like say, oh, everything's backing up, get off the network.
Yeah.
So is that an adequate answer, or is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I guess that's what I was kind of leaning towards. I mean, I know the challenges we had before we went to fiber. I can't imagine how you even back up without fiber.
We try. And right now, currently...
But it is getting backed up somewhere.
It is getting backed up,
Okay.
and we do use a wireless broadband.
Okay.
So, which, believe it or not, was faster than the regular broadband that came in.
So what role is SNS playing in all this?
They're our IT provider. They're very supportive.
Right, so we have, our servers are offsite at the SNS facility, and they also, the wireless link is our...
But they must be as up to speed on this stuff as anybody, right? That's their thing.
Yeah. I mean, with the tower, for example, that's a fiber-fed tower, but I think they're...
They do it, yeah, they do a great job. They're our network consultants as well for my company. They do a great job. We don't use them for the internet service, but they are our network managers.
But they can do both, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's correct.
Jimmy?
I just got a couple questions on just some of these that are bumping up a little bit. The overhead, and if I missed this, because I wasn't...
If you missed it, it's worth asking us that.
The overhead door and lighting, I'm assuming it's on the back side of the police department. Is that something that I see it's jumped up from $3,000 to $8,600?
Dan has a picture.
Is that anything?
Wait 1 second.
It's actually not the overhead door, it's a door, an entry door.
It has no protection on it.
So we had...
Okay, so it's more of a drainage, ice.
It's a design flaw from when the building was built.
Okay.
Splash.
I wasn't sure whether there was any sort of energy credits or something that for lighting. I know you can get some energy credits and things like that.
There is some lighting.
Overhead door. So.
But to answer your question, yes, that's that door frame right there. And we're putting an overhang. We would propose to put an overhang out there as well to keep the snow away from the threshold. You can kind of see from that picture that it's all on the same level.
Okay.
But we are looking at replacing some ballast lights in the sally port that are old school and put LED in there for some cost savings.
Okay. Yeah, I just saw the electric bill is $11,000 a year, so I just didn't know whether we could kill two birds with one stone, but the entry door overhang a little bit different. The other question was the line painting. Is that something the Public Works handles?
So, so she put, it says line painting in here, but what that is, that's seal coating, that's crack sealing, fixing the curbing, and we do it once every 3 years. When they do all of that, they paint the lines. And then on the off years, Public Works paints the lines.
And my third question, if it's already answered, just stop me halfway.
That's okay.
Regarding revenue for officers when they do details, is that in here as a separate issue? Or a separate?
It shows up in your revenue report,
Okay.
it offsets taxes as it's collected.
Okay, so that doesn't go directly to the police department. And does that cost include equipment, or is it just man, is it just labor?
If you're talking special detail, there is a special fund for that, special detail fund, and we bill out to companies for that.
Okay.
And they're also billed for vehicles,
Okay.
a vehicle being there, flashing lights, so on. The revenue for that is recorded in the special revenue fund, which you're gonna see the budget for that very closely
Okay.
here soon. And that money, once it builds up, can be used for equipment to the cruisers, and we've used it
Okay.
in the past.
I just, as over time, and I'm sure there's details this year with paving and all that,
So
when that
that,
goes up,
yeah.
then the use goes up on the equipment, some of that can be justified.
So if there is a surplus, I shouldn't say surplus, but is that a correct
It's
term?
reserve fund
If
balance.
there's a reserve fund balance that's adequate enough for us to utilize, for example, the cruiser camera that needs to be replaced in one of the patrol vehicles, then I would ask if we could expend that, and then we could take that off of our proposed budget, take that $6,000 off of that. But right now, I don't think that fund is adequate.
As of the end of this year, I'm estimating there's gonna be about $8,000 in there.
So it's certainly a possibility to go in there. I'm glad you
Yeah,
brought that up.
I was just
so.
seeing, some of that you're bringing in some revenue, so whether some of the maintenance or some of the cruisers could be.
So the other question
Right.
about the sealant of the parking lot and the lines. Would that be coordinated through Public Works, or do you have to have is someone from the department going out and trying to get a contract for this? I mean, I've asked over the years, people that wouldn't be their normal, area of expertise. Public Works, it is their area of expertise, and so when they coordinate it with other projects going on in town, would that happen here?
Right now, I think the police department has handled that contract on your own, using your own admin staff.
We use the same, we use our own admin staff, but I went to Public Works and said, hey, who do you recommend? Who have you used in the past? We got quotes, and we've used this particular company in the past 2 times. And they're very reputable.
I was just curious if it's a smaller project is more expensive than having it included in with
I understand.
another. And so that's the reason why I'm asking that question.
I don't, that's a good point. I don't know if anybody else is seal coating.
Yeah.
I mean, when last summer, when the St. Rose parking lot was done, did we do that, or did the church do that?
Yeah, I would imagine the church was done. How long ago was that?
It was done this summer.
Oh, then it would have been the church.
I didn't know because of the usage of it.
Yeah, I know that we handle winter maintenance of it, but I think that's it. In exchange for the use.
But it's not like we're doing, every 3 years, we're doing police department, fire department, Bremer Park, that we would.
That's right. I mean, actually, if you look at all of those, right now we are looking at incorporating all of those into the long-term plan. The parking lots themselves are pretty poor condition, and Bremer Park parking lot are pretty poor condition. But I
Fine
think,
movie.
yeah.
And the library and everything. I mean, I'm
So I
just
think
saying
that's an
that needs to be
outstanding idea. I
coordinated.
will work with the manager on this, but I know that Karen has done something like this for our overhead door maintenance for the 3 buildings, and I believe for pest control.
Yeah,
Correct.
fire extinguishers. we
Fire
brought-
extinguishers,
brought in
pest
one of
control.
the alarm systems. We've been, I think, steadily doing that. And with Duncanco here too, it'll be easier for us to, build some.
But I'll make a note of that, and I'll just check before we pull that trigger.
Yeah, I just think it would be, if it's part of a larger project, it's possibly
Swimming pool.
more economical.
Swimming pool, that's right, yeah, it's coming.
Water
Or
park.
we could crack seal.
Water park.
It's breaking the asphalt.
Karen, and Chief, the idea of acquiring 3 cruisers at one time, I'm just wondering how that's going to be presented.
Well, at this point in the budget, there's only one.
That's why I was asking, because I went back to see, and there's only one in there. You would, yeah,
The
so,
other 2 would have to be out on a warrant article,
okay.
and we're developing them.
Yeah, and so I do have, the chief has gotten me the replacement plan, and so what we'll do is we're actually going to incorporate that into a similar format, so it'll actually be part of a larger plan, is goal that every piece of equipment will be in the 10-year replacement plan. And so Chief and Deb will be working on getting that to this format, so we can have a whole picture of the whole town, not just part of it.
That was full disclosure too. I mean, the board and the town manager could say no, and we don't want to do that. But I thought it would be best for the committee to understand where we're going with this.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was just curious at how it's going to be presented, because it's either going to spike your budget with 3 cruisers in the budget, but you're saying 2 of them would be on the warrant article. I was just curious about how it was going to be presented, so.
We could have done it 3.
Yeah, we could have done 3 out on the warrant article and none in the budget, or done.
I'm just saying it's, yeah.
But then Diane, also the risk-reward strategy of it.
Yeah.
Chance of losing it all if you did it as one.
Oh, I don't care. I was just saying it's not, it doesn't reflect all 3
But
cruises in your
if we
salary.
were doing 2 on a warrant article and 1 in the budget, you still have, and it all passes, you still have the flexibility then that you can just spend $56,000 in the first year buying the 3 of them and delay the payment of the warrant article.
And that's the part I didn't get in what you said. That you get all 3, but you pay for it over 3 budgets.
You pay $56,000 a year, more or less, per year. I'm just asking, if there's 1 in the budget.
No, but that's, I'm sorry, but I don't get that. How do you they give you the vehicles without having to pay for them?
Well, that's what we're asking here.
We would be buying 1 outright.
Yeah.
The other 2 would be on a lease agreement.
I don't necessarily think that that's where we want to go with that, as far as, I think we wanted to do the lease purchase, all 3.
Okay, well,
That's
we
correct,
could
'cause
do
that way
a
we
lease
can-
purchase of all 3, pay 1, then the first year, have a payment for the first year, and then the other payments would be spread over the next 2 years.
Yeah. But I'm just wondering, with the one in the budget, can you still restructure it that way after the fact?
Kind of like, I mean, there's a question same in line with how we had to purchase the 2 cruisers because of the law change.
Well, I do have an answer from Jamie Dow. You can buy or lease something as long as you have the payment, money enough in the budget to make the payment for the first year. Then your lease, of course, has to be approved at town meeting, because you have to have a non-appropriation clause in that.
So wait,
So this is-
even if you have,
So
like,
essentially you're saying you get all 3 vehicles and you, instead of buying it, you're leasing them and the payments are structured such that you pay them off in 3 years.
That's correct.
it's like
Okay.
buying a
All
car.
right.
every year.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's,
I got you.
Yeah.
But
They say
then I was
lease, but
wondering-
it's-
Yeah, but I didn't understand that because you were talking about buying one and then leasing it.
You are.
How do you do it for the same price?
it's lease purchase,
Yeah,
is what
gotcha.
it is.
Yeah, all right.
And the advantage is you're spreading the cost of the installation.
Oh, I understand that. I was just
3-year period.
curious at how it was going to be presented.
Okay.
Because if you, to me, it probably would be all 3 on 1 warrant article or all 3 in the budget. And so it's like, I'm confused which way to go
But
on that.
even from what Karen's reading, it sounds like even if you put the entire amount of the lease for all 3 in the budget, you still have to have a warrant article that gets permission to enter into a 3-year lease.
Yes.
Right.
So,
Under the new law.
under the new law, so
Okay, so you'll
then it
figure it
becomes,
all out.
I guess, a strategy discussion like Steve's saying, well,
If you have one in the budget passes, you could buy, and the other 2 don't pass, you buy 1
Right.
outright.
But then the question is, I'm just asking, but if the warrant article passes and the budget passes as presented, then can you structure it so you're using that $56,000
The first payment.
for the first payment and on the lease of 3?
Yes.
As opposed to the purchase of
Yes.
1?
Then the warrant article has no
Yeah.
2020 impact.
you could word the,
Yes.
you could word
Well, I
the
think-
article.
Yeah,
I think you can because
It would be
you,
21 and 22.
You
I
have
think you
money.
can because the first one that you're acquiring, you can acquire it however you want, it's in your operating budget. The other 2 have to be leased, so then you could just set it up to lease all 3 of them and use that
But
first money.
is that transparent though for the, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
transparent for the community to say that you're entering into
Well,
a
Will,
lease?
Karen, that's your job, you have to figure out how that could actually work.
Well, that's the warrant.
So, yeah.
That's
for-
what the warrant
To
is.
Diane's point, yeah, I think in the warrant article, if you would get permission to do the lease for threes, and if it's, I think you'd have a clause that says, if this passes, the operating budget will be reduced by the equivalent amount of that.
You can do that, but your chance, if you have a non-appropriation clause and somewhere along the line that was cut out of the budget, for some reason the selectmen decided to cut that out of the budget, you could lose all 3 vehicles. And you've already paid, say, 2 years on it. You could lose all 3 vehicles. So
There's
why
risk
would you
everywhere.
want to take a chance of that happening?
Well, I think that
You have to
that's
look
where
at
we
all
can
the
actually do the 56, and we get the 3, and then with the ability to remove.
But you're gonna work out the logistics of it to make sure you're comfortable with
But
it.
I get Diane's point. You do want it somehow to be clear to the voters on what's going on. You don't want
That's correct.
confused, because that just sows discontent and suspicion. Absolutely, we need any more of that.
We don't.
So if we move on to the special detail budget,
Yes.
this is called a revenue neutral budget. The taxpayers aren't paying anything into this budget out of tax appropriations. The money comes from the revenues received from special detail from the police department to go out and do traffic control or sit somewhere and watch something. And we bill out for the police officer plus the vehicle and an admin charge. Admin charge is maybe $2.50, I believe, at this time. And we pay the individual out of this budget. Anything that's left over at the end of the year falls to the reserve fund balance and can be only used for those items that warrant article has set up this account.
And that's the $8,000 that Jim was talking about.
Roughly, yes. Now, when we set that warrant, when we set the account up, this is called a revolving revenue account. Actually, the selectmen and the police chief are authorized to expend from this account without doing a warrant article.
Selectmen and police chief together.
Yes, we can do it without a warrant article. It has been done with a warrant article to be open to the public before to approve it. It's been used for safety equipment and updating things in the cruisers. Generally, we've used about 6,000 the last couple of years. We haven't used so much because the billing has been down, and now things are picking back up, and we're starting to see more money being put into the fund.
Can you use it like as a grant match for equipment? You know what I mean, like say the chief writes a grant for the equipment, and you know, if the budget's tight, rather than take out of the budget, say you have the match for the grant.
I haven't looked into that, but I could ask DRA. I don't see any clause of not being able to use it for that. I've never seen anything that says it can't be used.
I missed the question.
It's for safety and cruiser update, that was special detail
Grant match?
for grant match.
We're talking about the Christmas party.
Yeah, where are we doing that this year?
You're cooking, right, Steve?
Yeah, good.
So I'm going to move on to parking meters. Parking meters is a similar situation. It's called a revenue neutral budget. Whatever we take in, if it's more than the expenditures, falls to fund balance. We had a warrant article last year that allowed us to use 20,000 of this for some parking lot improvements
Purchase of
and purchases. And I believe it was another 10,000 too. We had a warrant article for trying to do some improvements. I'm estimating by the end of this year, we'll have about 25,000 in there, because we pretty much drained it last year. The debt that was in here is now moved out to the debt service budget, which is going to help build some funds in here. And in the proposed budget, you'll notice the default's the same as 2019, but in the proposed budget, there has been a decision to put in some money in maintenance and repairs, and that's to try to start improving parking lots on a regular basis, paving, replacing meters, designing parking lots, under equipment purchase. If we need to buy new meters, park cards, timing devices, or locks, there'll be money in this budget, and we're not having to bring it back and ask for a warrant article to use those funds. So we're cycling the revenues out through the expenditures on this.
I mean, just a quick update on last year, we talked about doing some parking lot expansion and working to purchase the 17 Hillview Terrace, which is the barn over behind Jack's Jr. and 42 Main. And there was some delay because of the previous owner and the purchaser and how that all worked out. But we now have a verbal agreement, and we're just working on getting the final details of a lot line adjustment that has to be done prior. So we're getting close.
The barn's coming down and then that being an extension of the parking lot.
Right, and the current owner and us are, we're actively looking for, somebody would want to repurpose the barn. There are some people who have been interested, so that would help eliminate some of the cost of taking the thing down, which might be significant. So, but we do have a couple of people who are interested.
So for some of the newer committee members, the funds from this, from parking can be used by warrant article, which I think was passed in 1949 or 1947, for the enforcement of the meters, upkeep, obviously maintenance, but for improving parking, and I believe road and sidewalk maintenance. So it's very specific what we can use these funds on. I believe that that's within the scope of the warrant article.
And parking continues to be a challenge downtown, which is kind of a nice challenge to have, obviously. It reflects economic activity. And on the other side of the river, our ongoing development plans there are envisioning parking also, correct?
That's right. If you go to the website, there's a plan, we held a plan to nature design track, and on the website there's a presentation that was given. We don't have the full report yet back from them, but there's some really neat architectural renditions of what some of the areas look like for improvement, like across from the covered bridge. We have $450,000 in grant money right now through a Land Water Conservation Fund, 200, and Northern Forest 250. So we're building up to be ready to purchase the lot from the property owner and then redevelop it into a community common and park. But the parking issue, we also did a parking plan in 2018-19. It took about a year to do with federal highway funds through North Country Council. And the results of that are also on the website. And it really gives recommendations for how to move forward in a methodical way. And we're going to be trying to do that over the next couple of years, working with the Public Works Director. When we do a parking lot, we're not just going to pave it. There's a lot of other improvements that will have to be made, lighting, pedestrian, landscaping, storm drains.
We might dig out the rocks first.
So, what's that?
Might dig out the rocks first?
Yeah. Or whatever else is down there, old cars, bodies.
And I'll just add that there's other low-cost items such as wayfinding and signage.
Yep.
To better educate people that aren't familiar with the area. So from out of town, it's a low-cost alternative to maybe just building a parking lot, but then maybe not have.
Can those come out of the state budget if it's off a state highway?
That's a good question.
But that's low-hanging fruit.
But yeah,
those are
that's
great
yes.
recommendations. I thought the committee did an outstanding job. They did a great job.
Yeah, they bid under each section after there was surveys and really in-depth studies, and then they have a kind of matrix of, you know, low impact, high cost, low impact, so you can kind of see what to do first. So it's good.
84 pages.
84 pages.
It's a great read.
I'll go home and read it tonight.
Yeah, no Ambien needed.
The difference between the 2020 proposed and the 2019 approved for the parking meters is $20,736. I don't know why there's 37 cents there, but must be some of my fractions.
I think it was supposed to be 38.
It's a 63.25% increase. It sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
Part of that increase is because of the adjustment of the debt, moving that out. Remember, this does not affect the tax rate. This is a revenue neutral budget. So even though there's a high percentage there, the money for this does not come from through taxation.
The revenues increased just as much.
Any more words of
Wisdom?
concern or wisdom?
I certainly don't have any wisdom, but I appreciate your time, and I would ask that if anybody wants to come down to the police department, you have any questions whatsoever on equipment, even the facility itself, come on down, we'll show you exactly what we're talking about here in the proposed budget. Yes, sir.
This is a department staffing question, and I got this from some of the notes on here. So, your name is Tyler, right?
Yes, sir.
And you were the captain, and now you're the assistant chief?
So the chief, the deputy chief, the captain, and one patrol sergeant.
Say that again, please.
There's the chief, deputy chief, one captain, and one patrol sergeant.
And so, this sergeant became captain, got promoted, and one of the officers was promoted to sergeant. Is that an accurate statement or not? Just, I mean, it's just curiosity, really. Because the last time that I talked to you, you were captain.
That's true.
Well, we have a vacancy right now for a sergeant, but what we'd like to promote from within, but if not, we might have to recruit outside, but in theory, yes, we would do that.
Yeah, but there's been a restructure, I mean, this is
We
a
did
restructure.
we did restructure, but there's still 4 people basically in that command structure, so whether it's 2 sergeants, a captain and a chief, or a sergeant, a captain, and a deputy chief and a chief, still 4.
And then the important question is, I bid on the ride along with you, and I still haven't connected with you on that.
Come on over, sir, absolutely. But what better way to be on the budget committee and getting out there and seeing what the situation is? Absolutely.
We need 10 cars.
And we need 3 restraint chairs. I want to see the next person you put in that restraint chair.
Come on down.
And,
So,
and just another point for you, I thought your volunteer program did a very good job at some of the recent special events in town.
Thank you.
So kudos to them for doing a good job.
Try.
I'm assuming that's VIPS.
That's Volunteers and Police Service Program. Anybody interested out there, just contact us. We certainly are willing to take, we always need volunteers.
What do VIPs do? What's the range?
They do everything from parade corps, they help out with traffic. We definitely need some newer volunteers for that. They do facility maintenance. They assist us with cruiser maintenance. They can do administrative functions, help the prosecutor, work in the front office, filing, and then all the community events like the bike rodeo, for example. They help out at the bike rodeo. They help out
House checks.
house checks. We do house checks. They deploy our speed trailer. They were with us on Main Street. As a matter of fact, we had for the Main Street trick-or-treating last weekend, we had a young lad that got separated from his parents. So this was a heat.
Yes, it was.
And one of our volunteers was walking patrol and found the individual. And so they're extremely helpful.
They need to have them on Washington Street.
Yeah, you're right. But
A hotbed of trick-or-treating.
I can't say enough. The Volunteers and Police Service Program was part of the Freedom Corps, which was created by the federal government after 9/11.
I thought the pumpkin head thing was great, community
Thank you.
spirit. I thought I saw a lot of different businesses and residents.
Yeah, I
participating in that.
thought the businesses did an outstanding job. We had a lot of residents that did that too. And, you know, kudos to Deputy Chief Tyler for the great pumpkin challenge, which we got a lot, if you didn't know about that one too.
Yeah,
That's great.
I saw
Got a lot of families out there searching for the pumpkins, and I thought they had some
followed it
pretty
on
tough
Facebook.
clues, but they got them right off the bat.
I
So,
can only saw one of them, that's because it was a picture.
yeah.
We did miss the animal control budget, and I apologize,
Okay.
Chief forgot reading it, but there was no changes. So it was the same as last year.
You'll bring us a sheet next week, though.
Yeah.
The only amount that we expend out of animal control is a small line, I think of $1,000 for boarding fees. So there are times when we do find a stray animal and nobody claims it, and we contract with the Littleton Pet Center, and somebody has to pay for the fees of kenneling that animal. And so that's what those monies are. Sometimes we only spend $200 out of there, and some years we spend the whole $1,000, but I think that number is pretty solid for us throughout every year.
I thought the restraint chair was the animal control.
But Littleton Budget can perform miracles. We're the proud owners of an English setter, Danny, who is always confined except when somebody leaves the gate open and lets him escape. And once he escapes, he ain't coming back until he's ready to come back. And one night, Suzanne and I come back from the UNH hockey game, it was about midnight, and there was a police cruiser sitting in front of our house with Danny in the back seat. And I said, boy, you guys did something that nobody else has done. And he looked very guilty. He was calling.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. And he posing back into the house in a very neat fashion. But, the longest fall I've ever known to be able to get that dog.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one more change. I just noticed that with the email that went out, the planning zoning,
I missed.
get left out. That would be planned for 11/19,
Okay.
and the earlier part, probably after the library.
And we can just,
We'll just leave it
now
up.
that you get the email, you can just update,
Yeah, that's
just
needed.
refresh it or whatever. Yeah.
So next week, we have public works, bridges and sidewalks, street lighting, sewer, fire department, EMS, dispatch. So,
That's a full.
Sounds like a lot.
it is, yeah, well, we'll do what we can do, yeah, and then that's it. You all have the proposed budget packet that Karen handed out the first time, so if you want to prepare a little bit and look at that, so it's not cold, you know.
I actually will email you, Diane,
Uh-huh.
the newest, updated, any changes, budgets for those departments, and then you can pass it on to the other individuals. If you can't print it out or somebody can't print it out,
Just let me
Just
know, yeah.
call and we'll make sure you get a copy. One other thing I'd like to present through email to you.
Okay.
This is our glossary of terms. A couple weeks ago, I think I talked with one of the budget committee members, and it was something that was mentioned, one of the newer ones, were wondering some of the terms that we use. Well, I have kind of a little summary of those terms and what it means. I also have who has a right for custody and expenditure of common town funds, like trust funds and things, fees and license and permits, penalties where somebody might want to go to look at the meaning of something. That's RSA's, State of New Hampshire. Then the final piece is a breakdown, and this is all information from the state, but this is financing options, what the different funds mean, who can approve them, if the selectmen can approve those funds, or if it has to be the legislative body. This gives you a little bit of description, plus gives you the RSA that relates to it. So these are things tools that we use and might help a little bit in some of the understanding of some of this.
Fun
Good,
balance and
so-
overlay.
So you'll digitize that
I
and
will.
send it to me, and I'll send it out to everyone. And for, I think it was just the two of you that weren't able to attend the meeting with the school the other night, if you wanted to recap that. I mean, the question was, would it, the revenue from the pilot agreement be equitably distributed between the school and the town according to the rates? And the answer is
Not if I can help.
is yes. You know, they were questioning if it was going to impact their.
There is and
tax rate.
has been a system in place.
They'll get it proportional.
And that system has only been in place, I think, like I said, for 4 or 5 years, after it became law, how this would work. And so, I think maybe that's where some of the confusion from the school, they weren't aware of the new statute, and there's only a few pilot agreements that are the size of ours in the state. I think he said ours may have been the second largest next to Berlin, so.
It's just so much to take in at one time, and I think that was part of the confusion too, you know.
But
if you
it
have
was
a
nice to
follow-up
learn though
question.
that it actually had been, maybe it hadn't been well explained, but it had been addressed ahead of time.
Yes, definitely.
And if maybe just for the camera saying, that meeting, they did say that they may have been misled at a previous meeting. I did go back and check the YouTube video of it, and it was said, but they may not have understood what he was saying. They did say was distributed.
Long pocket.
Anyways, so.
Yeah, so, well, thank you, and that was great that you had Mr. Sansucci there to answer any questions and walk us through. It was great. Thank you for doing that. Mr. Chairman?
Are we all set?
Yes, I think so.
Thank you all. Very, very good meeting, nice information. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
We'll see you next Tuesday.